What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back to discuss the 2022 NFL Draft. And today, we're taking a look at the edge defender position for this year's draft. Today, we're doing something very new. We have not done this before. You guys saw the title. We're going to be taking a look at an edge defender for each draft pick the Lions have this season. So let's get it started.
The city's been down and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take two more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to our video. Glad you guys are here. If you don't really understand what the title is, it's something new. We're going to try it. Basically, we're going to go through each Lions draft pick. They currently hold 9 draft picks. That's including the comp picks, 2, 32, 34, 66, 97, 177, 181, 217, and 234. Those are the 9 picks the Lions hold in this year's draft. So we're going to go through each of those spots and name an edge defender for that draft position that the Lions could take. Now, this is a little bit difficult because we, of course, don't know who's going to be drafted where, and there's still a lot of things that are going to change between now and the draft time. I mean, things could come out that we didn't expect, and then bam, all of a sudden, a guy's stock just starts falling. Or a guy's stock continues to rise, like Travon Walker, who continues to get talk as possibly being the one pick in this draft, which to me is a little crazy, but that's what's happening. Doing like 2 sort of different versions of this, 2 different players that I wanted to get involved in this list, and I was like, let's just do 2 different versions of the list. They're pretty much the same, but there's one, difference in each one. And I was like, well, it doesn't really matter. We're here to talk about some draft prospects. So that's what we're doing in today's video. We'll try it out. If you guys enjoyed this, let me know, and then we can do other positions as well. I'd like to do this for receiver for sure. Definitely we should do this for linebacker, off-ball linebacker, that is. We should do this for defensive line. I mean, we could do this for, what position am I? I'm missing a glaring, safety. Safety, of course, doing this for safety. So we're going to try this out. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to go for each Lions draft pick. Now, it is important to remember that the Lions could definitely trade these picks. So the picks that they currently have now could be moved. So because of that, I thought of doing by each round. But I was like, let's just go by the picks because of the amount of players that I want to get in here. And if they move, of course, we don't know where these guys are going to land anyway. So if I say a player for 66, guy may not be there, or he could fall to 97. We could have got him at that spot anyway. And we know there's a ton of different styles of edge defenders in this year's draft, just like in every draft. I mean, you can get a guy that's 280 pounds, a 3-4 defensive end, which may not be the best fit for us. Or you could go get a guy that's 235 pounds. He looks like a tweener. Maybe he's a 4-3 off-ball linebacker. So we're going to take into account, of course, whether we think he'll fit schematically, the production, how he played last season. Everything goes into this. So I guess let's just dive right into it. Let's start with the 2 pick in the draft, edge defender that the Lions could take with the 2 pick. Let me know in the comments below players that you would substitute in for different spots in the draft. That way I can check them out. I have not seen every edge defender. This is the position that I would say I'm the deepest at in terms of diving into each of these players. By the way, go to doseofdn.com. We are updating our draft profiles over there. There will be grades updated and put in there. They're not really put in with very many players yet, but they will be put in there very soon. But if you go to doseofdn.com, it's free. We have our draft guide up there, our kind of like first version of it. So you can check it out. You can scroll through all these players. Every player that I talk about in today's video, I do have a sort of draft profile on the website. So you guys can go check those out as well. But yeah, let's waste no time. Let's dive right into this. Let's start with the 2 pick in the draft. And we're going to go with the edge defender out of Michigan. We're going to go with Aiden Hutchinson with the 2 pick. Now, there is a very possible chance that this guy's not sitting there with the 2 pick in the draft. But we've done a lot of talking about Kayvon Thibodeaux. We did the recent video about Kayvon Thibodeaux. So I was like, let's just talk about someone a little bit different. Let's talk about Hutchinson. Travon Walker could be in this mix as well. We've discussed that a little bit. We'll probably end up doing a film video soon on Travon Walker just to be sure in case the Lions just select him. He's more of a projectable player. He doesn't have that production that some of these other guys do. A lot of that's because of the role. He was also very rotational in that Georgia defense. But we know about the size, the athleticism, the length, all those things the Lions would probably like, just like every team in the NFL. And he could probably go into any system you wanted to. And he's done a lot of different things at Georgia. George Karlaftis could possibly be in this mix. Maybe. It doesn't seem like his, stock is rising that high. If anything, it may be going down, which is cool for me. I mean, if he was sitting there at 32 and the Lions could somehow scoop him up, I would be through the roof. But the issue is that length, some of the intangibles there, some of the get off. I don't know if the Lions would be as interested for a guy like that at the 2 pick. So we're going to go with Aiden Hutchinson today. You can kind of substitute whoever you want in at this pick. It's more about the other draft picks that I wanted to discuss. But Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan, 6'5", 265 pounds. He had one of the most productive seasons of any defender this past year. He played in 14 games, and he was productive throughout the season. He had 14 total sacks, 51 hurries, which is just insane. And he really just broke out playing in that NFL style defensively with Jim Harbaugh, bringing in a Ravens defensive coach to hold down the defensive coordinator position. It allowed him to play in a stand-up role, which he said benefited him big time because he could really see everything. Now, we know on early downs he played that kind of role, but on pass downs, he was moved all over the place. You could put him inside, you could put him outside. You were just trying to get matchups. He had a very big benefit, which was having a guy named David Ojabo on his side. Now, quick thing I will throw in there, David Ojabo is not on this list for any of the picks. Big reason for that, number one, is the injury. So I didn't want to really include someone that's probably not going to play next season. And number two is because I really haven't dove into a ton of his film. I went through a lot of players, not him yet. I haven't really got to him yet. A lot of that's because of the injury. Still have time for the draft. And like I said, draft profiles will continue to be updated. So I'm sure very shortly there will be a draft profile on dosefidin.com on what I think about David Ojabo out of Michigan. But Aiden Hutchinson was still extremely productive. What I love about it is I think he brings you a full package immediately. First off, run defense. Lions need help run defense. We did a video. We broke it down. Teams ran all over the Lions on first and second down. Teams ran the ball on us more than anybody else in the National Football League on early downs, probably because we struggled so much to stop the run. We had allowed 45% conversion rate on third down, which was terrible, but also to add on top of that, we didn't get many teams into third down situations. A lot of that, unfortunately, was due to our inability to consistently stop the run on early downs. Now, hopefully, guys like Levi, we know more Aleem next season, those guys will step up and help us out. Getting Romeo back should be beneficial, but Romeo's never been the most dominant run defender. Aiden Hutchinson, to me, brings a dominant run defender day one. And there's honestly, I don't know if there's a ton of those guys, in the top of this draft. I mean, obviously, pass rush is what gets paid, but to have a guy that can be a 3-down, very impactful player, that's what Hutchinson's going to be. Dominant run defender. The dude is super agile for his size. It's just disgusting. He wins so many times by setting up tackles to the outside and beating them back inside. We saw a street cone drill. People really kind of forget what he did at the combine. They get caught up with Trayvon did, and they get caught up in his 40 time alone, which isn't very important for an edge rusher. I mean, some guys, they show their 40 time in chase down situations, but Hutchinson's combine, aside from the 40, was pretty darn ridiculous, okay? He pretty much tested out everywhere well. He's a freakish athlete, high IQ player, dominant against the run. To me, can be moved around on pass down just like he was at Michigan. The biggest thing here to me will be, first off, he doesn't have a first step like Kayvon Thibodeau, in my opinion. It's good, but it also came from a stand-up role consistently, and it's also not as explosive as Kayvon is. Also, I don't think he has some of the flexibility that a guy like Kayvon has as well. He needs to find more ways to win on the outside. Defensive line coaches, they usually got these guys coming on draft that are raw. They have to develop ways to win. And to me, Aiden Hutchinson has more than enough athleticism to win more often on the edge, to win outside of an offensive tackle more than he did back in college. But what's cool is he was pretty much productive in every single game he played. Even the Georgia game, where people said, well, he wasn't good. Well, it wasn't necessarily that it wasn't good. It was more of the situation that he was in. Rarely got drop back situations. They ran away from him. They double teamed him, got the ball in their hands quickly. Didn't get in situations to pass rush. But the good thing is Hutchinson can help you in the first area, which is stopping the runs. The biggest drawback that I have with Hutchinson, aside from really the get off or anything like that, is actually the arm length. Being at 32 1/8 inches, it's not great. If anything, it's at average at best. It's actually shorter than George Karlaftis. And you guys know I'm a big George Karlaftis guy. But Hutchinson was still extremely dominant against the run, even with that being the case. I think separates him from a lot of people, but the production that he's had, to me, when I think about Aiden, I think about a guy that I just could not see failing at the next level. Does that mean he'll come out as the best edge? No. Maybe down the road, maybe he's not. But I just can't see this guy not being great in the NFL. Now, I get it. How does he feel at the Lions? Things like that. I don't know. They get to talk to him. They're having a top 30 visit with him. But to me, I think that Dan Campbell would love that type of player that I've seen through film. That player, all the character stuff, they got to figure it out. But that player that I've seen on film, I think Campbell would absolutely love that kind of guy. He feels like that guy that would just, I don't even know. They like the type of dudes that would headbutt each other or something. I don't know. That would be their handshake. That's the kind of vibe that I get from that kind of mesh together. So we go Aiden Hutchinson at 2. Again, you can plug in whoever you want here. Okay, it could be Kayvon. You could put Trayvon Walker. You could put George Karlaftis here. I mean, I don't know who else you would put in there. Some people put Jermaine Johnson. I don't put him up there. I probably wouldn't put Trayvon in there. Kayvon, George is, kind of up there, sort of, but I think the intangibles kind of knocks him out. And Kayvon would be the other guy, but, we'll just have to see how off the field and stuff goes. May not be there at pick 2, but if he is, we're going to go with Hutchinson here. All right, now here's where things get interesting. Pick number 32. This is where we're going to do kind of 2 different versions of this, just to get more players involved to this list. We're going to go 2 different versions here just to get more players involved. Now, technically, this would be the Lions' 32nd pick in the draft. We could just be saying this is a round 2 pick, but since the Lions hold 32 as of right now, which could change, they could trade up, different guys could be involved, and at that point, they could move back. We'll have to see where it ends up going. But with pick number 32, our first scenario, we're going to go with Cameron Thomas out of San Diego State, 6'5", 270 pounds. Cameron Thomas is a guy that when I initially watched him, I don't think I appreciated what he really brings to the table. That after rewatching, going back through a lot of his film, watching multiple games, especially seeing him in games like Arizona, Utah, against some Power 5 schools where he was still pretty productive, I can see why the Lions will be interested in a player like this. Cameron Thomas, to me, makes me kind of think of when the New Orleans Saints drafted Trey Hendrickson. He was also, I won't say out of a small school, but he didn't play the best competition. Florida Atlantic University. You have Cameron Thomas, who was coming from San Diego State. So the competition wasn't consistently great that he faced against, but like I said, he was still productive against 2 Power 5 schools in Arizona and Utah. Now, he didn't look as dominant, I would say, but I also thought his role changed a little bit, which we'll talk about. It's an extremely good off. And what I feel like can be really caught up in as soon as you get closer to the draft, and as you get closer and closer, you start to get caught up in what a guy could become. Okay, he's got these measurables. This is what he could be. Okay, this is what he wasn't in college, but this is what he could be at the next level. But it can be easy to kind of overlook 2 things that are very important. First off, the character, which is the most important thing, is getting the right guys in the building, which I don't know about the off-the-field character. It's something the Lions want to figure out about him. And number 2 is, was he productive? This guy was productive against 2 Power 5 schools, and he was ridiculously productive last season as a whole. Over 20 tackles for loss. A lot of that had to do with the scheme that he was in, but like Hendrickson, a lot of tackles for loss when he came out. I think he had 15 in his final year. Also had double-digit sacks. I believe it was set at 10.5 by Pro Football Reference. What I like is a couple things. First off, the get off the line of scrimmage. He gets on his opponent extremely quickly. All right, now this is where you start to see versatility within this game, because a lot of times on passing downs, they would reduce him inside. It's also something that we saw with Hendrickson when he came out. He would get reduced inside, and I think it made sense, but I also think there's ability to still rush from the edge on pass downs, but he gets his hands on guys so quickly. And again, we're talking about run defense first. Quick explosiveness, stays low, constantly wins the leverage battle throughout a game, and he just springs off the line, right? And he can do this out of 4-point stance. You see him move around the defensive line, and they do a lot of slanting. If you're wondering why, it's because of guys like this. He springs off the line, shoots gaps, beats offensive linemen to their spot, and he's in the backfield. And he's very relentless, and I know that word gets used a ton, but I'm not even saying as a pass rusher. I'm saying as a defender. I didn't see him drop into coverage very often, but there was a few times that I did notice that he did that. They did drop into coverage a few times. We noticed with Cameron, maybe a little bit like Hutchinson, a lot of his wins do come from the inside, which is a little bit concerning. Again, I don't think has the most acceleration to bend, to be one of those guys like Kayvon that you're thinking most of his production comes from the outside, where Kayvon needs to improve is the inside pass rush. He doesn't win as much on the outside. He a lot of times sets up his offensive tackle, works back inside, but he understands how he wins. I think that's why he's extremely productive. There's certain guys in this draft that, they got to figure out how do we win as a pass rusher. Cameron Thomas knows what he's good at, and he knows how to win as a pass rusher. And that's base downs. He knows how to set up linemen. He knows to make them think that he's working towards the outside, to really push that outside foot, then come back inside. He's very slippery, work overhand, and get to the backfield. That's how he wins, and he knows how he wins. He's got very powerful hands. He's got a nice pop. He just knows how he wins as a pass rusher. On pass downs, yeah, they did kind of reduce him inside. Now, would that be a problem for the Lions? I don't think so. I look at Julian. I look at Romeo. I look at Charles. All those guys, to me, can win on the outside on passing downs. He was a very big stunt player for them, which is huge twist stunts, things like that. And either he would create the hole because he would take on 2 guys at his size, or he'd be the guy that was coming off from inside working outside. So there's still good athleticism here, right? It's not great bend edge to consistently win there, but to me, if you had to reduce him inside on pass downs, no issue with that, because then you could have him inside, Romeo, Charles, Julian. Those guys can all line out on the outside. Cameron Thomas's day one impact. I mean, he was coached by Brady Hoke at San Diego State, who had an outstanding season. And again, against bigger schools, they try to slide him in more often. I don't think he has to be, but on pass downs, I mean, we could have a very, very nasty lineup if you had a guy like this on the interior, because of his stunt work, because of how quick his hands are, because of how quick he gets on guys. He could be really good here, and he's just relentless as a whole. But we're not even just talking pass downs. They literally line him up as like a 1 technique on 1st and 10 at times, which is like, how do you do that? Obviously, competition plays into that, but I think he did it against Utah. Like, this is Utah. Why is he lined up there? He could play everywhere on the D-line. Probably won't be the case at the next level playing everywhere like that, but the versatility is always nice. I mean, he could be, kind of the guy that I think on base downs, where would I put him? You line him up as a 4-3 defensive end. Maybe he plays over a tackle. He could slide inside, maybe more of kind of like the Brockers defensive end role when he played defensive end. Levi, your 3-tech. He could rotate both those spots. Me, Cameron Thomas could play 3-tech, 5-tech, could get either of those spots over a guard, over a tackle, a guard. He could line up at those spots, slide in a little bit, especially on passing downs. So Brockers and Levi could kind of be part of that rotation. And then those guys you want out wide, which is the Romeos, the Julians, probably even the Charles, those guys who may not be as dominant against the run, even though I think Charles is good against the run, Romeo not so much. These guys can bring more of that strong side defensive end ability, but specifically shooting gaps. And he does have enough power right now where it seems like he could possibly be a 3-4 DN for someone that's playing that scheme. They'll probably be interested in him. I think he needs a little bit more power to be consistently holding up, especially against double teams where he seemed to get washed out. But in terms of our defense, he has more than enough strength to play on the strong side of a defensive line. I think maybe there's a little bit more there when he really pins his ears back, possibly, to work from the edge. It's not the best, though. It is a little bit limited. Now, the other version of this is that we take the guy out of Oklahoma, Nick Bonito. All right, now this is number 11, 6'3", 240 to 248 pounds. I've seen 248 a lot recently. Look, the guy's slim, and he's probably going to have to bulk up, and it's leading a lot of people to believe like he's a tweener at the next level. So even just saying edge defender feels a little weird because he may end up being like a 4-3 off-ball linebacker. I mean, he may be a Sam Backer at the next level. We're still trying to figure out exactly what that's going to be for him. 3-4 defense seems to make the most sense. Play him as a 3-4 outside linebacker. We know in the Lions defense they're going to be running more 4 down front. So there is a little bit of question about his fit, but I definitely don't have question about his playing ability. Yeah, he could probably use more mass, but I almost feel like it's more projection based than what I actually saw in his games. The only game where I felt like he was a little bit inconsistent was TCU. Aside from that, I thought he was dominant. To me, he's one of the best pass rushers coming out in this class. His ability to stop and start, change direction, spin moves. He's got a really deep bag of tricks that he could bring out with development here because of his just athleticism, the flexibility, the stop and start, the twitchiness. He's just an elite pass rusher. And yeah, there's going to be some questions about his run defending. He's probably not going to be the guy you want on the strong side of the field in run defending. Very fluid as dropping into coverage. So if you think about 4-3 outside off-ball linebacker, you might be like, well, maybe we could make this work. That's why 3-4 outside linebacker seems to fit. But, you got to just tailor your defense to what players you have. And to me, he's just got so much talent, it's hard to just overlook him because maybe there's some questions about his size right now, when he could probably just add a little bit of size to that. I do think there would probably be some issues, ask him to hold his lane, definitely to 2-gap, anything like that. But if you have him playing off the backside, shooting lanes, flattening the line of scrimmage, my goodness, he's in the backfield a lot. And he does bring a lot of force. He doesn't play like he's slim, right? He plays with a lot of aggression. So to me, he's still one of my, favorite pass rushers in this class because I just think he's dominant. The production is through the roof as a pass rusher. I just think he's dominant. And I know it fits weird, so we'll just use it as kind of a second option. Leads us to pick number 34. Now, in the second option, Cameron Thomas then would be my pick number 34 option, right? Because to me, Cameron Thomas, he reminds me of Henderson, but we even saw Henderson come out and it took a little bit of time to develop. So I don't know if you want to use that as a first round pick. It always just comes down to who's available at these spots. I'm trying to go based on who I think will be there. But he reminds me of that. If you get him at 34, probably a better spot to get him than 32. To the original one, if Cameron Thomas, used at 32, who's the 34th option? Well, with a guy that there's rumors that the Lions have interest in, and that is Drake Jackson out of USC, 6'4", 249 pounds. Now, to me, Drake Jackson, the Lions have shown some interest, and I completely understand why. Again, this is the type of edge that would not shock me if the Lions wanted to go this direction. What I don't love about this is I feel like this is high for Drake Jackson. I feel like 34 is a little bit high because I think he's a project edge where you draft him and I don't know how much immediate impact you're getting, right? Because I feel like he could help you definitely on pass downs and there's a lot there, but it needs time. So if you go back to the second scenario where Nick Bonito's 32, 34 is Cameron Thomas, then picks number 66, that's a good Drake Jackson spot, right? I think that's a good spot for him. And to me, he feels like a project player. He has incredible flexibility. The bend, specifically in his hip, his shoulder, everything above the body, his ability to just avoid contact, to me, is outstanding. You see also good ankle flexion, which really allows him to kind of flatten the outside of a pocket and work his way towards the quarterback. I think he needs to develop the inside pass rushing prowess. There doesn't really seem to be any sort of pass rushing moves to the inside, but it should be a huge part of his game. Unlike Cameron Thomas, who wins a lot in the inside, this guy doesn't win to the inside, but yet it should be a gigantic part of his game because of how much depth he forces tackles to get. If he had more ways to win to the inside, his production to me would shoot through the roof. I think, again, it's just kind of a more of a project pick that you're getting here. I think he needs to add a little bit of muscle where, you know, when he gets offensive tackles reeling and he has a chance to convert that speed to power and really run over a tackle, he allows them to kind of reset. Even though he's coming downhill with good speed, he doesn't have that bull rush power to just rock somebody. He needs to get stronger. He's got very long arms, which is a problem, and it's consistently been a problem. He gets contact very early, and he creates a lot of space as a run defender. Can't coach. And we saw with guys like Cam Jordan from New Orleans, right? Cam Jordan's a much bigger guy, but incredible length, which makes him very good against the run. Outside pass rushing is fine. You know, there's because of dip, bend, flexibility, get off, but he needs more development, right? I look at a guy like Cameron Thomas. You can put Cameron Thomas all over the defensive line. There has been rumors that the Lions are interested in this player, and it wouldn't shock me because the upside, like as a defense line coach, you're like, ooh, this guy could be really good. Now, it's different when you're doing that at 2 versus doing that at possibly a pick 66. Doing that at 2, you're like, okay, yeah, this guy could be really good, but it's also our 2 pick. We want a starter day 1, like Campbell said. And I think when you even think about that beyond quarterback, starter day 1. Walker would be a starter day 1, but he's still not there yet because you just don't know. It's more of a project. Guys like Kayvon, guys like Hutch, I feel more plug in and play. But pick 66, you know, a guy like that and Drake Jackson, Lions would be interested because he's got all the tools. He's just very raw. Next guy we're going to go with is Majay Sanders. I don't know if I'm saying his name exactly right. I apologize if I'm not. I haven't heard his name very often. He came in at the combine very slim. It was weird because he, you know, you were like, why did he come in at that size? Another guy, I believe the Lions had Sanders in for a top 30 visit. I think that's what it was. Or maybe this was the guy that the Lions showed interest at the combine. It may have been that. I think it may have been interest at the combine. Either way, Sanders to me, he's got, again, 2 traits the Lions want. Last with Drake Jackson, well, just put that in the body of Sanders. 6'5", 240 pounds. Again, a little bit more on the slimmer side. It kind of makes me think of a guy like Yannick. You know, Yannick was a little bit more on the slimmer side when he came out, but Todd Walsh brought him in, allowed him to play a stand-up role. And he made me think, well, he's playing 4-3 and does he have the ability to do it? This guy plays a lot of stand-up role, but they did it with, you know, Yannick. He just allowed him to play stand-up 4-3 defensive end. You like to have him on the weak side of the play. That's what Sanders to me brings because, number one, very good arm length. There's a lot of guys in this class that are kind of middling, like 31, 32, 32 and a half. You find guys with really nice arm length, like 30, like Sanders, who's got over 33-inch arms. It's really nice to have that, but then he also combines it with the explosiveness up the field, and that's what I love. There are some reps, especially when it comes to putting your ears back and rushing, where it's almost like he shocks the offensive tackle that's across from him, like, oh my goodness, like he got here really quick. He got here way quicker than I anticipated he would get here. He's one of those guys, because of that get off and length, he's going to probably constantly see tight ends and running backs to help chip on his side. However, I also think he's a very smart defender. He's a very patient pass rusher. That's the way that I put it. We'll see what a tackle is doing before he reacts to that. He doesn't just go, and even though he has that really nice get off, it's not always there, and I think some of that is strategic because he kind of waits to see exactly what a tackle shows him. The biggest issue for him, and everybody will say it, is the balance. The guy falls all the time. He is always on the ground, which is weird, but he is a lot. I think one thing is, first off, his frame. He does seem to try to put a lot of power into his punches, especially in the bull rushes. And to me, it's going to lead to issues in terms of slipping and falling because you're throwing a lot that you maybe don't have at a tackle trying to really move them and you can't. That's going to cause you to lose some balance and slip and fall. He's got really slippery hands. And, you know, like I said, he's a patient player. So it'll lead to bat downs. The long arms are awesome. I think there's a lot to like here. It's just about finding a way to keep the guy on his feet when he's splitting gaps, when he's going through stunts, to keep his balance and still be able to find a way to make the play. And I think a lot of that could be fixed possibly by adding some mass, specifically in the lower body, where he can really kind of take that shock back from a lineman that he tries to put something into and keep and hold his balance. He launches himself into blockers. I mean, he just jolts them right off the snap. If it's a run play, he's going to launch himself into it. And he just doesn't have the build necessarily for that right now. And again, this is a guy that I think point of attack, you put him on the strong side. At his current build, he could have some issues against the run, but definitely playing off the backside, I think he'd be much better. And again, you put on some more weight, he'll probably be much better there as well because he has the length to create the separation and he plays with a lot of aggressiveness. You just need to bulk him up a little bit more. So we'll go with Sanders out of Cincinnati. I see the stats. 54 hurries. I mean, that's insane. It's rare to find an edge rusher anywhere in this class that has 50-plus hurries. We see it with Hutchinson, but if you look at a guy like Kayvon, he only played in, 10 games? He's in the 30s. You look at George, he's in the 30s, right? 54. Only has 5 sacks. There's a lot of opportunities out there that he just wasn't able to finish play because he slipped and fell. But because he's patient, but at the same time not slow. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between sitting there and saying like, oh, okay, they're running it, and then getting there because you're not gonna be able to make a play. But patience, but at the same time being able to quickly react to that and then make a play. And this isn't just pass rush. This is run defending. This is dropping into coverage. All of those things, he is constantly in the backfield. He just has to be able to finish the play. This is why we have two different scenarios, because in the second scenario, that would lead you to pick number 177. However, in the first scenario, that would lead you to pick 97. So basically, you're just pushing everybody up because you're taking Nick Bonito out of the mix. So now you have pick 97. Okay, well, who would it be in this scenario? Why not? We get more players to talk about. So let's do it. We got Tyreke Smith out of Ohio State, 6'3", 254. I've been a fan of Tyreke Smith since I, first came across Tyreke Smith and, popped on. I think I even saw him on YouTube or something. I was like, oh, I like this guy. Talk about Sanders being a patient pass rusher. To me, this is a very highly aware, defensive end for Ohio State. And because of that, you're going to see consistent production. Now, the upside, the ceiling, you may question a little bit like, okay, how high is his ceiling, right? You look at some of the other guys, they think that has like really high ceilings, like Drake Jackson and Sanders. How high is this guy's ceiling? That could be a question. The arm length is great again, 33 and 5/8 inches, which is awesome. But to me, he's a very smart, very aware pass rusher. What about Sanders being a little bit patient to what an offensive tackle gives him? For Tyreke Smith, sort of similar to me. He has very good awareness. For example, I think I was against Oregon was the first game I dove into for Tyreke Smith. And you saw it was a quick pass set, so the offensive tackle didn't get very much depth, right? It was a quick pass set, so the quarterback's going to get the ball out really quickly. So because of that, you'll see him immediately. His first step is, okay, push the inside foot of this offensive tackle. Then as soon as you get that, he's able to counter back outside, and he's able to get around the edge. Now, that seemed to be kind of his go-to move, was push the inside, counter back to the outside to kind of give himself a little bit more room to really get the edge. And I think you see some flexibility, specifically again in the upper body, to kind of make himself skinny if you're using him on twist or if you're having him kind of shoot lanes. But there's also some depth that was noted as well. There was a very clean spin move that you saw him throw at Penn State, which actually led to an interception on an obvious passing down. Kind of question some of the upside here because of the quickness off the line, because of maybe some of the acceleration and speed to win on the edge consistently. That's to me why a lot of times he sets up guys by jabbing inside and trying to work back to the edge. It's because he doesn't have that clear speed to just run by people like a Kayvon Thibodeau does, which is, not many guys have that, but he doesn't have that, which is okay because, he understands that. And it's rare to find players like that are built like Kayvon that could do things like that. We're just like, okay, he can just do this. Tyreke Smith doesn't have that, but he finds a way to win without having that. But you talk about his length, his consistent hand placement. All right, he has a lot of push-pull wins where he'll get on you quickly, he'll get right in your numbers. All right, and now he's got a really good leverage spot, and then he can easily just disengage by going to a push-pull. He is pretty balanced, especially along the line of scrimmage. Once you get him outside of that, you can have some questions about change of direction in space. If you drop into coverage, you can't really ask him. Like, there's some guys like, for example, the dude out of Minnesota, can't think of his name right now for some reason. That guy, you could have him turn and run and just take on a running back, and it's like, wow, he is extremely fast. This is probably not the player you want to do that with, but he could be a very early impact player that could end up going a lot later in this draft. Now, we're going at 97 here with this scenario. The other one, he's not even involved in it, but we're going with 97 because I don't think he'll make it to 177, but he's a guy that I think could help you right away. I don't know if you want to have him be your full-time starter, but definitely a rotational player that could help you right away. He reads the backfield as a run defender, which leads to some questionable get off again, but he reads the backfield, so it led to plays like against Oregon where he's out there and he's making a play on a screen. So we'll go with Tyreke Smith at 97 in the first scenario, and that leads us to day number 3, 177, 181, 217, and 234. We're going to go with the same 4 players here. Now, of course, I haven't seen every edge defender, so I definitely could be missing out on someone that I come back later and I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I miss this guy? You got to check this dude out. For now, here are the 4 we're going with. So let's start with 177. A lot of these are based on where I think they'll end up going, so you kind of have to prioritize that. Maybe not my grades on them, but where I think they'll end up going in these, last 4 in that kind of order. So the first one we have is 177. Let's go with the Oklahoma. Let's go with the other edge defender of Oklahoma. This is Isaiah Thomas. A lot of you guys have talked about Isaiah Thomas a lot to me, who is 6'5", 267 pounds, and again, great arm length here, 33 and 7/8 inches, right? That's pretty darn impressive. And to me, the way that he wins right now is with power. That's how he wins. He wins with power. Now, he's a pretty flexible and slippery when he's shooting gaps, which is kind of weird. Again, he's one of those guys that, especially at his build, you wouldn't expect it, but he has a weird knack for the ability to get into the backfield consistently when you ask him to shoot gaps, which is pretty awesome. But he wins with power as a pass rusher. He's the kind of guy that if he gets in the offensive tackle's chest, he delivers a lot of power. He jolts into that chest, and all of a sudden you're seeing tackles, they start reeling at that point. He can just completely discard and anchor that someone's trying tries to set up. He's also, again, I said pretty slippery in upper body, and because of that, you kind of see it like on swim moves and stuff like that. He barely even gets any contact. It's weird. It's a weird ability to kind of just slither his way through the offensive line. But to me, again, this may be a little bit topped out with a guy like Isaiah Thomas. He doesn't have much burst in terms of trying to get around the edge. He did have 8 sacks, I believe, last season. Isaiah Thomas did. And to me, he'd be one of those guys that you could plug in, rotational, possibly play strong side defensive end. So I think that's what you're looking at here. I don't know how long he'll last on, this kind of list as I continue to go through edge guys, just because the ceiling feels a little bit limited with him. But for now, we'll have him at 177. On to 181. Again, we're kind of based on like simulators and things like that, where I think these guys will end up going. Go with a guy to UAB. This is Alex Wright at 6'6". Again, big size, 6'6", 270 pounds. Another big dude here. Now, he, to me, played a lot of a stand-up role. He's a guy that you put on your strong side of your defensive line, and you'd allow him to play the kind of that stand-up role, because that seemed where he had to have a lot of success. And he's got a lot of good push. You go to a base protection set, he's got a lot of good push, can really get inside the chest here. I mean, last season, his production was outstanding. Again, competition will be thrown out here, but the guy had 43 hurries. 43 hurries? I mean, it's insane. So we'll see where he ends up going, but his pass rush win rate was just under 24%. He was also really good against the run. If you're just looking at the statistical side of things, to me, he's got a lot of power, but a lot of that is set up by forcing the outside ankle. He gets it off the tackle, reeling just a little bit, opens up their hips. All of a sudden, he transitions that speed into power, and he converts that, and he's making a play. But kind of like our last guy, you do question a little bit some of that consistent speed and burst to win the edge consistently. While he can transition speed into power, to really beat guys around the edge, ability to really sink it and flatten the edge. But as a run defender, I think he's very impactful day one. Of course, his build has a lot to do with that. But what I like about him, how tight and how low he's able to really get his upper body. He gets underneath the pads of offensive linemen at his size, which is tough at 6'6", 270 that plays a stand-up role. But he consistently gets underneath the pads of an offensive lineman, keeps his hands very tight in terms of hand placement, and it allows him to get a lot of extension between him and the blocker, create a lot of good space, and then all of a sudden he could be effective against the run. So we're going with Alex Wright here at pick number 181. Now, again, I do got to throw it out there. Remember, this is not necessarily like, okay, here are my top 9 edge defenders. That's not what this is. I'm just going based on where the Lions picks currently sit, who I think could be there, right? Now, let's move on to the 2 7th-round picks. We're going to go first off with Michael Clements out of Texas A&M, 6'5", 270. This is another big dude here, all right? I guess we got some kind of theme going on with these last 3 guys. I didn't even realize that when I put him in. All right, Michael Clements. Now, to me, well, again, the size is a very big part of his game. What I like is the straight line speed. Okay, I'm not supposed to get caught up in 40s, but man, a guy ran a 4.53, and it's pretty wild to see some of the effort plays that he makes. Like there was one against Alabama where Robinson was running away from him, and all of a sudden this dude he catches him from behind. You're like, hold up, this guy is huge. How did he just do that? He has incredible straight line speed. Stop and start, not so much. All right, the ability to kind of step on the gas, stop, and then go again. Like for example, at the beginning we had Nick Bonito, which is incredible. Not really the strong suit here. The strong suit here for Mike Clements, because of that straight line speed, is build up to speed. It's get downhill, it's build up to speed. It's attack the outside, it's get them reeling and deliver all that speed into power and try to jolt an offensive tackle back into the backfield. Continue to probably build on the ability to win to the inside, because that's probably how he's going to win at the next level. He's a high-hipped, tall edge, which is just a little bit clunky when you see him move around. But you get him going downhill, you may have something that you can work with here. Does play a little tall. Like I said, in stunts, you'll see him get stopped a little bit because of how tall he kind of works. But his get off isn't bad. That's the thing. Like straight line speed is great. Get off isn't bad. All right. It's not always represented when you watch him play, but there are reps when he's get off is pretty solid, and he's definitely shown the ability to get his shoulders low. It's how he wins. He turns into a bull rush. He gets his shoulders down, even though he's high hipped, and he bulldozes offensive tackles back. I just don't see much bend, don't see much dip. To me, like there's not that. And to the point where if you watch him, even if he's even, there's some guys that'll kind of get even, and then they'll all of a sudden they'll kind of really flatten out. They'll flex the flexibility to really flatten out and get the edge. He is forced to stop and try to transition that into a spin move, which at that point, his agility, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just like, okay, the play's over. So it's limited. It is limited, especially at his size right now. It's a little bit clunky. I just think he needs to develop a pass rush plan as a whole. Strong, fast. There might be something here, but I think he needs to develop a pass rush plan as a whole, because that can't be your only go-to is, hey, hey, I'm going to transition the speed into power and just bulldoze you back. It's not going to work in the NFL. There has to be more of a pass rush plan, to the point where you even saw sometimes tight ends lock this guy up. And it's like, that shouldn't be happening. He's too big for that to happen. But it did, because it didn't really seem like he had a go-to pass rush type of plan. But he is violent in terms of disengaging. The wingspan, the radius that he has is outstanding. I mean, the guy covers a lot of ground, anything that's near him. So I have him listed as a 4-3, potential 3-4 defense man. You could probably put him in either spot. Probably going to be a day 3 pick. We'll see if he makes it this far. Not sure. Simulators think he will. Could definitely see him going higher, however. And we're going to end with a guy that I know I'm going to butcher his name, so just be prepared for it. I'm going to mess this up. The guy out of Western Michigan, I actually started watching him yesterday. Ali Fayad? I think that's how I don't know. It sounds pretty good. I don't know if it's correct or not, but Ali Fayad out of Western Michigan at 6'1". I actually saw a recent interview with him when he was talking about guys that he watches in the NFL. And one guy that he brought up was Dwight Freeney. And he's like, man, I watch him. He has a great spin move. And he talked about, I think Robert Mathis, I think it was, and, you know, his motor that he brings. See, Fayad's pretty cool because he's 6'1", 255. Some people think he'll be an off-ball linebacker to the next level. Some people think he'll be a Sam. I mean, I guess I could see it, especially when you take into consideration the height. But his length is okay. You know, it's 32 inches. It's not great. It's definitely just in the average to below average category, but it's okay. I just think he has outstanding effort. This just doesn't seem like he takes any plays off. And when you talk about, hey, what edge rushers do you watch? And you bring up a guy because of his effort, it's like, okay, yeah, he's probably going to bring that to the table. He does. Tons of upper body strength. He's more of a stocky built kind of guy, probably because of his size. He doesn't really stretch out. More stocky, so it leads to high bench press reps. He had 28 of them, but he was used in a ton of different ways. You saw him in spirals. You saw him play in coverage. You saw him in stunts. You saw them try to use him off the edge. And what really stuck out to me is there was even success against some of the big schools. So you think about Western Michigan, right? He had some success against Michigan. And I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's actually doing some things here. That's big time. He is a spin rusher, though. Like, that's his go-to. Like, what does he like to do? How does he like to win? He likes to win by the spin. I think that's why he's looking at that. It's not a bad move. It's not. I mean, it could improve a little bit, but he has really nice lower body balance. Again, probably being lower to the ground helps that. So his go-to is the spin. Get you off the edge, spin counter, and work his way inside. Plays with very active hands. Anytime you see him trying to work the edge, very active hands. I mean, he'll throw multiple strikes at you, multiple club move, multiple, just chops. I think his get off is a little bit weird because you're like, okay, it's not good. It doesn't seem very good consistently. But then there's also just a few reps in there where it looks pretty good. It's like, okay, that's solid. That's something we could work with at the National Football League, but it's just not consistent. Some of that's role. I think some of the things that they asked him to do is because of that, but there does seem to be enough glimpses in there where it's like, okay, we could probably work with this at the next level, but there's good agility in his game. He's a good mover. It's just all the things that you would think about a guy that's low to the ground, right? Good knee bend. You've seen in stunts. But yeah, I would like to see him still improve some of the lower body strength, especially in run defense, because he has the upper body power to really, push guys, but you would say like see some of that lower body strength to really finish the plays, even as a pass rusher, even if, pass rush turns into bull rush moves. I don't know what role he's going to play at the next level. If he's playing an off-ball linebacker, it could be a little bit different, but I think if you plays your, strong outside linebacker, or he plays as an edge, maybe there's something here. I put on my grade that he had limited upside, so you don't want to get too caught up in projectable tools at next level when a guy has production like this, things like that, but this is going to be a later round pick. I could definitely see him going higher than this once we get close to the draft and more awareness, because, he's been in that Western Michigan defense for 5 seasons now. He's played for 5 seasons, had good production. His last season, his production was really good. 12 sacks, 17.5 tackles for loss, which is very impressive anywhere that you are. But it definitely shows him an issue. Length. He is many times outreach, and you'll even see versus tackles, even if he gets some reeling, tough time making those guys pay because of his arm length. You also see kind of that dip and bend around the edge. Be forced to kind of sink and just bend at his knees, really showing that ankle flexibility to really flatten the edge. Those kind of things show up in his game as things that may not be improved upon. I talk about his get off, maybe something that could work at the NFL. Specifically, I saw that in the Pittsburgh game. There was a few reps in there. Again, Pittsburgh, another big school where he showed some things, and that's another big school, and you see some good reps, and you're like, okay, I can work with this, all right, but it's not elite still. So I definitely think ceiling is probably limited here, but the production, you look at how long he's played in defense, the versatility, I love his effort. To me, this might be one of those guys, and honestly, I'm putting him down here not because I don't like him more than some of the others I just said, but I'm putting him down here because this is maybe the area that I've been seeing him going. But at the same time, if some team believes that they can make it work even with his build, he may end up being a very sleeper yet somewhat productive player at the next league. Awesome job of avoiding traffic, especially playing off of the backside. You see the push and pull. A lot of it's because of his upper body strength. I think he's a good gap shooter. I think that's where he best translates to the next level. But also as a run defender, his height did show as an issue. Talk about some things that are good. It also did show us an issue. There was a few times where it was like he couldn't see where the ball was because he couldn't see over the guy blocking him. So he would block and he would think the ball is maybe going here based on how the O-line's moving, and then the ball would go completely to another side. So that could be an issue for sure, and that's something that you can't teach. And he also, the length. I mean, it's okay, but he did get outreached a lot, especially in certain roles that they would put him in, where they would get on him early, they would close the gap, and all of a sudden it's tough for him to get separation. Upper body strength is good to try to disengage, but there are definitely limited side here. That's why I put limited edge upside. Got to continue watching these guys. I know Barno, I got to go get into more of his film. It's a lot of late guys that I have to go through and watch. I know people are trying to think Jeffrey Gunter is a guy out of Coastal Carolina that I got to check out. Sam Williams out of Ole Miss. He wouldn't have fell in the day 3 range to me. It would have probably been like pick 97. I don't know if I love the fit at 97. I wouldn't take him over Tyreke Smith, I don't think. So that's why I didn't put a guy like him on there. Again, this is not my top, 9 or whatever edge defenders. It's just for each pick, a player that could fit that role for us. So those are the guys we're going with. We'll see how it plays out, what kind of style they're looking for. But I think length and first step are very important, and I think we hit that with a lot of guys here. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Let me know who you would substitute in at what spots. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.